The interconnected movie universe. Something which Marvel has coined. It's what a lot of franchises tried to replicate. Absolutely. Alright, I will say Marvel popularised it. And then subsequently, a lot of other studios and properties looked to emulate that and replicate it as best that they possibly could. But that is failing. That is falling apart. I think people are getting sick of the interconnectedness. I think having to watch 5 streaming shows to understand what happens in the next movie is tiresome, at best. Now, Sony is looking like they're breaking the mould. Their bizarre sort of handle on what they've been doing with their Spider-Man stuff, they've accidentally sort of paid themselves dividends now, amazingly. And Variety has a great report here which talks about how cinematic universes are falling apart. But Sony is leaning into standalone stories. Madam Web, Kraven the Hunter. Oh, they're not connected to anything. I mean, it's not really by design with Sony, though, is it? Let's get real here. They'd like it to be connected. I just think that they've sort of fallen apart on it all. So we'll take a look at this, because this is just fascinating stuff and it's quite funny. But it is also true. And I do wonder, not that Madam Web's going to do gangbusters. Kraven the Hunter might do okay. Probably not. But will this be the future? These sort of standalone stuff. We've already heard Marvel wants to do that anyway. So will this be the future? Who knows? Hit subscribe if you're new here. Turn the bell notifications on. Follow me over on Twitter and Instagram. So here you have it, look. As cinematic universes stumble, Sony leans into standalone superhero stories with Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter. So funny. So funny. And they're right, though. Variety states how it's not the best time in Hollywood to be a cinematic universe. DC has finished flattening its own franchise, so James Gunn can begin a new one with Superman Legacy. But the DC universe looks a bit of a mess already. Marvel's a mess. The thing about Marvel, which isn't necessarily their fault, and it's not the fault of any cinematic universe, but if you put your stock in one actor, and that actor has some skeletons in the closet, it's all falling apart very quickly, actually. And DC's been a mess for a little while now. So Marvel Studios is licking its wounds after a series of streaming duds and box office disappointments. Box office bombs, more like. So, obviously, it's a somewhat existential period for both banners between Marvel and DC. Only 2 theatrical releases, Disney's Deadpool 3 and Warner Brothers' Jokey Folie à Deux. Both with only tenuous connections to franchise canon, as slated for 2024. Which is very true. This will be the year there's only 2 superhero movies released by, well, 1 each by Marvel and DC by the looks of it. Sony Pictures has 3 lined up. Oh my god. Emerging as this year's leader in the superhero space. Yes. Yes. The studio isn't presenting its films as installments in a year's spanning narrative architecture, though. And here's some statements from some individuals that have worked on stuff. So, there may be some hesitation to emphasize the interconnectedness of these movies, says Jeff Gomez, an executive transmedia producer at Starlight Runner. Gomez worked with Sony as a story consultant when the studio rebooted Spider-Man in 2017. Cast and Tom Holland have reached an agreement to co-produce with Disney to place the superhero in the rivals' cinematic universe. And they say this: they've talked about it before, and it didn't work out. So far, post-credits teasers bridging Sony's spin-offs to Disney's own continuity via interdimensional travel have been seen as half-hearted and ultimately unsuccessful. Those appendages aside, Sony's largely minimised the interconnected nature of its superhero films. Well, I mean, you say that, but mate, it's Morbin time. The end of Morbius was, jeez, what the fuck was that? What was that? So they don't downplay it too much. The run began with 2018's Venom, a high gross-out comedy slant origin story about the alien symbiote. $850 million that gross. That's crazy. The hit sequel followed along with the ongoing Spider-Verse series animated films. 2018 original Into the Spider-Verse. Obviously, Oscar, blah, blah, blah. Then Morbius came out. Then another Spider-Verse. And obviously it doesn't look like we're getting another Morbius, because who the hell would want to see another one of them? Even as a meme, people didn't want to go watch it. However, here's the thing, which they could be onto a winner. Sony's calendar has aligned for its busiest superhero slate yet, offering 2 origin stories followed by Venom 3 in November. Each production is being sold as a self-contained endeavour, with its own aesthetic touch, and no franchise catch-up needed. It could be beneficial for them. It could be beneficial. So up first is Madam Web on Valentine's Day. God, can you imagine taking your girlfriend to watch that on Valentine's Day? You'd be coming out going, I'm so sorry. Set in 2003, the film stars Dakota Johnson as Cassandra, a clairvoyant who must lead 3 teenage girls. Teenage girls. You've seen Sydney Sweeney's Assets. Fucking shit, a teenage girl. But anyway, look. What's going on? Who knows? That is going to be a joke. I don't think that's going to do particularly well. At all, in fact. Madam Web is, of course, tied to Spider-Man, but they're like, no. Gomez is like, the purpose of doing that movie, I would think, would be to essentially set up a super highway between universes, if it does well. And then you got Kraven the Hunter. It's a gangster film directed by J.C. Chanda, who has earned auteur cred for crime films like The Buttoned Up Potboiler, A Most Violent Year, and Gung Ho Triple Frontier. At last year's CinemaCon, Kraven star Aaron Taylor-Johnson took to the stage to bellow, fuck yeah, it'll be rated R, and the trailer promises a bloody macho romp. The trailer looks like dumb fun. It doesn't look like it'll be good, it just looks like dumb fun. And then, of course, we got Venom after that. But they say this Gomez guy, the people that worked with Sony. If Kraven is about a dude with the powers of a lion and doesn't allude to the greatest Spider-Man universe or help to set up what's going to happen, then it had better be a rocking good movie. But we already know that there are some elements of that movie which will, like, rhinos in it, I think. Pretty certain rhinos in that by the looks of it. There'll be some nods. Sony's terrible with this stuff. Sony's absolutely awful with these things. Really, really bad. But they say this, and this is what's interesting. So measured financial risks allow Sony to introduce new characters without facing the potential repercussions of a daunting investment in a cinematic universe. So they can introduce characters. This is what what Variety is saying, is they can introduce characters in a periodic fashion that has no connection to anything else. And that's actually a lower risk, basically, because they're not trying to, it's not something which then has to carry over to something else. And case in point is actually Marvel and The Eternals, because my god, that film's awful. Now they've kind of screwed the pooch on those characters. And then obviously there's some other movies as well, but it's that if it doesn't land, the hype's gone. Right? Each movie needs to feed into the other. Each movie has to build hype for the next one. Is basically what they're saying here. And that's why Sony's got the upper hand slightly. At CinemaCon 2022, the studio brought Bad Bunny on stage to announce El Muerto, which would follow a superhuman luchador to be played by the singer, but his conflicting tour and script revisions now have the project back in development without a star on the books. Whether or not El Muerto, I'm butchering that, comes to fruition, its standalone nature is the model that Sony is applying to comic book films. Amid unease, the cinematic universes may have grown too expansive. Sony looks to woo viewers via contained narratives. You know, the way blockbusters used to do. So, I think this is good news. I mean, look, I think Variety's talking up Sony just a little bit too much. Because, my god, they're not that good. But it's still interesting nonetheless. So, what do you guys think? Do you think Sony's onto a winner? I mean, the cinematic universe is dead. I genuinely believe that. And I think DC will find that out moving forwards. The cinematic universe is dead. I think it's run its course. Because they bled over into TV too much too quickly with too much content. And people are like, no, I'm good. When you're releasing a movie or two a year, that's fine. And then it feeds into itself. Still has a standalone nature, but there's an interconnected thread building to a wider thing. That made perfect sense. This crap on TV and all this, no, go away. I think people are sick of it. So, there you go. Drop your thoughts down below. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye now.